you have your Bibles, please turn to the Gospel according to John. The Gospel according to John. The 16th chapter, starting with verse 32. The Gospel according to John. The 16th chapter, starting with verse 32. And say amen. Amen. It says these words, "Behold, the hour is coming. The hour cometh, ye is now come, that ye shall be scattered, every man to his own, and shall leave me alone, and yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." You may be seated in the presence of God. As I read that scripture, I saw that there was that last sentence there, "I have overcome the world." It made me think of the anthem of the Civil Rights era, the anthem that so many of our heroes and sheroes and some of the people in this room have sang the words, "We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday." I do believe deep in my heart that we shall overcome. These were the lips that rolled off. These were the songs, the lyrics that rolled off the lips of our heroes and our sheroes, those men and women who fought through the Civil Rights era. These were the words of hope that carried them over into the next time. And as I thought about that, I thought about what are the words that my generation and the people who come after me, what do we use today? Because see, that was the anthem in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. But what is it that my generation used? And I thought of the words of Kendrick Lamar that simply say, "We're going to be all right. We're going to be all right." If you'd be so kind to look to your neighbor and put a smile on your face, act like you want to be here, and just say, "Neighbor, I don't know what you're going through, but we're going to be all right." Kendrick Lamar, in his lyrics, Kendrick Lamar exclaims, he says, "All my life I've had to fight, but with God I know we're going to be all right." My brothers and my sisters, I've stopped by here at People's Institution Baptist Church this morning to let somebody know that whatever you're going through, we're going to be all right. I've come to find that we are living in dark and turbulent times. We're living in times in which our country is being held hostage by a man in two men in Washington, D.C., one by the name of Donald J. Trump and the other by Mitch McConnell. We're living in a time in which homelessness and poverty is growing in the richest country on earth. We're living in a time in which working class people and unions are under attack. We're living in a time in which black and brown mothers are still fearing for the lives of their children when they walk out in the morning. We're living in a time in which black and brown boys still have to become afraid when they hear the sirens pull up behind them and worry if this is going to be their last day on earth. We're living in dark and turbulent times. We're living in a time in which brown children are being separated from their families and being held in cages in the country that we call America. The country that is all about liberty and justice. And I think about the words that Dr. King said as he stood on the Lincoln Memorial, and he said that, and this was over 50 years ago, he said that it seems as if we have been written a check that has come back insufficient funds. And yet we're living in a time in which we still are receiving a check that continues to come back saying insufficient funds. But as Dr. King said, we refuse to believe that the bank of justice is empty. There is some justice out there somewhere. We refuse to believe that it's empty. We're living in dark and turbulent times. But, see, while trouble is in the street, I find that trouble has found its way in some of our own homes. Trouble is not just we find that trouble is not just on the TV, on the news. It's not just in D.C. It's not just on the streets, but trouble has found its way to your house. We found that your money is funny and your change is strange. That you don't have enough money to pay your bills. We find that trouble has found its way to your house, and you thought that you had a good bill of health, but then you went to the doctor and they gave you a bad report. We find that trouble has found its way to your house. Found that your family is out of control. Your husband won't act right, your wife won't act right, your children won't listen. Trouble has found its way to your house. But I come this morning to let you know I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what trouble has come your way. But hold on, my brothers. Stay strong, my sisters. We're going to be all right. When we look at the text, come into the text, we find that Jesus is talking to his disciples. Jesus, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. The Messiah. I heard somebody say that he is heaven's champion and earth's emancipator. Jesus, some of us who've read our Bibles, we might know him as a brown, nappy-headed boy from the streets of Nazareth, born to an unwed mother, teenage mother, if I may say that, raised by a carpenter, and grew up to have no place to lay his own head. That Jesus is talking to his disciples, or as my generations would say, his squad, or as Pastor Davenport's generation might say, his homies. He's having a conversation with these people who have been with him for 3 years. They have been through thick and thin with him. They have wandered the streets with him. They have seen people love him and some people hate him. He is sitting and talking to them, and he said, the time has come in which you will have to leave me. You're going to have to go back to your own families. You're going to have to go do your own work. You're going to have to go back and mind your own business. But I don't want you to worry. I don't want you to fear, for I am not alone. For my Father who is in heaven is with me. Is there anybody here who can testify that there are some times in which you may find yourself all alone? That there are some times in which people will smile in your face, but at the same time trying to take your place, backstabbers. Anybody in here who can testify that there's some times in which you have people all around you, but yet you feel all alone? Or maybe you're in the midnight hour of life, and you just feel as if you have nowhere to turn. But can anybody testify that God showed up in the midnight hour? That God is a God that will work you to sleep late at night? That God is a God that will show up by your bedside and talk to you every once in a while? Can anybody testify like that today? Sometimes we get into those dark places in which we feel all alone. But I come to let you know that the Bible says that he'll never leave you, nor will he forsake you. Yeah, you can be like David, who said, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Yeah. Jesus, he's talking to his disciples, and he says, look, you're going to leave me, but I'm not going to be alone. For he'll never leave me, nor will he forsake me. I'll be all right. And then he gets down to verse 33. And in verse 33, he says, I have spoken these things unto you, that you may have peace in me. When he uses that word peace, it automatically gave his disciples an at-ease feeling. Because the word that he used here in the English, we see peace, or in me you'll have peace. But in the original text, in the Hebrew, he uses the word shalom. If you ever talk to a Jewish person and they greet you, they may say shalom. meaning peace be unto you, but what it actually means is peace be unto you, but it's a peace that can only come with you being in a relationship with God. That's why they don't greet everybody with shalom. They only greet people who are other Jews or other believers with that greeting, because they recognize it's a peace that you can only have with being in relationship with God. And so the disciples, when Jesus had said this to them, peace be unto, that you'll have peace in me, they already recognized that while they were leaving him, he was not leaving them. Yeah, that while they were going to mind their own business, that his business still was them. Yeah. They understood that while their peace, while they might have been leaving what they thought was their peace was not leaving them. Yeah. That word shalom, and it gives that connotation that for us today, that in order for us to have a peace beyond all understanding, that we have to be able to be in good relationship with God. If we're not in good relationship with God, then we'll find ourselves stressing and depressing, and find ourselves with hell all around us because we're not in relationship with God. Now let me just say this. I'm not saying that if you're in a relationship that life is going to be peachy keen. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that if you're in a relationship with God that the sun will shine all day and every day will be howdy. Never goodbye. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that when you're in relationship with God, that while the wind may blow and the storm may rage, that you may bend, but you will not break. Matter of fact, in some translations it says, be not dismayed. Be not dismayed. That word dismayed literally translates to be shattered. And so it means do not be shattered. Do not be broken. Remain whole. And so what Jesus is saying, he's saying, look, life is going to be troublesome. Matter of fact, that's the next part we're going to talk about. Jesus said, life is going to be trouble. You're going to have trouble come your way, but the peace that you're going to have with me means that you will not break. You will not shatter. With this peace, you can have the peace like the bird who was in the painting. I don't know if you know that story. There was a man who had a class, and he had asked his class to draw a picture of peace. And all these people had drew sunshine. They had drew a day with no clouds. They had drew flowery fields. And they all presented it to the teacher, and said, this is peace. And he said, that's not peace. Somebody else brought a painting, and it had the ocean calm at sea, and brought it to the teacher and said, that's not peace. And another person had drew a picture of a bird sitting on a tree branch with the storm raging around him. But the bird sat on the tree branch fast asleep. When they brought that to the teacher said, that is peace. That's the type of peace that we have when we're in relationship with God. That's the peace that surpasses all understanding. It's the type of peace that says, hell is all around me. The storms of life are raging, but I will not shatter. I will not break. I may bend every once in a while. I may go back every once in a while, but I will not break. That's the peace that we have. And I just want to encourage you, if you're going through hell and you can't find peace in your life, you might want to reevaluate your relationship with God. You might want to reevaluate it because he is the Prince of Peace. Therefore, with him, you should be able to sleep in the midst of the storm. Moving on. So then he says, in this world you shall have trials. You will have trouble. You will have tribulations. In this life, you're going to have some things come your way. When Jesus uses that word trouble, he in the original translation, it is actually translated into the same word that is described when a woman is in labor. Now, many of the men in this room, none of the men in this room really understand what it is when a woman goes through birth. But I heard a comedian once say, she said, if a man wants to understand what it means for a woman to go through birth, take your bottom lip and try and stretch it over your forehead. And that will be what determines how much pain a woman goes through when she's giving birth. Yeah, and so what Jesus is describing here is that you're going to have some pain in your life. You're going to have some trouble in your life. You're going to have some times in which you're going to want to throw in the towel in your life. You're going to have some excruciating pain when you're going to hate everything in your life. But he says, hold on in there. Because on the other side of labor pain, oftentimes there is life. We're going to have some labor pains in this life. That word trouble is also used in the 7th chapter of the book of Acts when Stephen is just recalling the life of Joseph. You remember Joseph? Joseph in the Old Testament, Joseph was the son of Jacob. Joseph was Jacob's favorite son, hated by his brothers, sold into slavery. And he was sold into slavery in the land called Egypt. And God's favor was upon him, and Potiphar loved him and raised him up to be the head of his household. Potiphar's wife also liked him and said, hey, Joseph, why don't you come my way? Joseph said, no, I will not come your way. And she called rape on him, and he ended up being put into the depths of the prison of Egypt. But yet God's favor was still upon him, and he rose up to being the prince of Egypt, and nobody above him but Pharaoh himself. That Joseph is a Joseph that Stephen is recalling in the 7th chapter of Acts. And what he's saying is that with life, you're going to have some situations in which you have no control over, but yet God's favor is still upon you. You're going to have some times in which you're going to be stressed and you can't control it, but God is still with you. You're going to have some times in which you're not going to understand what is going on, but hang in there, but God's promise is still upon you. Another translation. I'm trying to work it out for you. I want everybody to get it. That word trouble is also translated into press. Press. If you ever look at a nice piece of pottery, you have to know that pottery had to be pressed. It had to be put on the wheel. It had to be stretched in order to become the masterpiece that you see. I always tell a story about the teacup, and I won't tell it today, but essentially it's about a cup who started off as a piece of clay, had to be stretched, had to be pulled, had to be turned, thought he was going to die, but when he looked in the mirror, he saw a masterpiece. My brothers and my sisters, God is trying to let you know he's going to have to pull you sometimes. He's going to have to press you sometimes. But he's saying, hold on, I'm just trying to get you into your masterpiece. Okay, last one, somebody missed it, so I'm going to give it to you one last time. Get it, hopefully you get it this time, but I have no more examples. So, I was talking to my mom, let her know I was coming up here. She said she wanted to come up here with me. And I said, do you have any African attire? Because Pastor Davenport had let me know on multiple occasions we were wearing our African stuff. So I said, do you got any African attire? She said, I don't got no African attire. So I said, I got an extra dashiki. And I said, I'll get you an extra dashiki. And so I went and got the dashiki, and it was wrinkled. And so I ironed it out. Well, I was getting ready to iron it, and so I got the iron board, and I got the iron. I plugged up the iron, and as I plugged up the iron and turned up the heat, I heard my dashiki start talking to me. I'm not crazy if you I said you live long enough, but I think everybody ain't older than me, but you'll find that you'll start talking to certain things. And so the dashiki started talking to me, and it said to me, hold up, Brother Mo, I know you ain't about to put all that heat on me. I said, no, I am. I'm about to put the heat on you because I got to get the wrinkles out. He said, oh, no, you can't burn me. Don't burn me. And I said, dashiki, I wouldn't burn you. I paid a price for you. You belong to me. I wouldn't do that. I'm gonna press you. I'm gonna put some heat on you. But really, what I'm just trying to do is I'm trying to get you to be without the wrinkles. I'm just trying to get the wrinkles out. I'm just trying to get you so you can be presentable. And God is trying to tell us that today. He's saying, look, I wouldn't burn you. I'm gonna have to put you through some heat. I'm gonna have to put you through some trouble. But I wouldn't burn you. I wouldn't ruin you because you belong to me. I paid a price for you on Calvary. I wouldn't do that to you. I'm just trying to get the wrinkles out. I'm just trying to turn you into your masterpiece.
That's good.
And if you look at my mom, Dashiki, there's no wrinkles on it today. God's trying to get the wrinkles out. You're going to have trouble coming your way. Don't get fooled like some of these other people who say, well, if I turn over to Jesus, is my life going to be everything? No, it's not going to be all that and everything nice. You're going to have some trouble. But what he promises is that he'll be there with us in the midst of it. He said he'll be there with us in the midst of the trouble. So, I hear some of you saying, Brother Preacher, I hear you saying that trouble's going to come my way. I hear you saying you're going to be all right. But how are we going to do it? How are we going to be all right? Well, I have 3 points because I would not be a good Baptist preacher if I didn't have 3 points. And so I'm going to give you 3 ways for us to be all right.
All right.
The first thing that we must do is we must look in. We must look in. God lets us know, he says in Genesis 1:27, that he created us in the image of God, which means that we have the likeness of God within us. So at the time of birth, we've got a little bit of power in us. Then the Bible also says that he did not give us a spirit of fear, but love, power, and a sound mind. Therefore, as soon as we come out, we have power, love, and a sound mind in us. And then you get born again into the family of God. Then you get filled with the Holy Ghost. So you had power from the time you came out. Now you got Holy Ghost power. That's supernatural power. We've got power within us. We've got power to speak to mountains and they be moved. We've got power to speak to sickness and be healed. We've got power to speak to those things that are not and they will be. We've got power within us. But not only do we have power that comes from our heaven above, but we as a people have a sense of power that comes from our earthly father too. See, we come from a people. We come from a people who have lived through times and times and time again, who have overcome, obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. We come from a people who have watched their children be sold. We come from a people who had to sit and watch their daughters and their wives be raped. We come from a people who maybe didn't have much money in their pockets or didn't have food in their house, but they were able to turn a little bit of rice or a little bit of noodles into a meal to feed 12 children. We come from a people who maybe you didn't have rice or noodles, but you had a little bit of bologna or a little bit of hot dog. You could cut that up and turn it into a meal for your family. We come from a people who can turn 15 cents into $1. We come from a people who overcame Jim Crow. And now we're trying to overcome Donald Trump and Jay Crow too. We come from a people who have persevered time and time again. We come from kings and queens, warriors. So we have a priestly priesthood. We also have a royal priesthood. Not just from our Father in heaven, but our Father here on earth. God has already instilled us. He's already equipped us with what we need for us to overcome. Yeah, many of times we are back against We find ourselves with our backs against the wall. And we feel as if we don't have anything in our arsenal to use. But God has already given you some things to make it. He's already given you things. Last week I preached a sermon, Still I Rise. He's given you some things in your arsenal to rise. He's given you some things to make it over. You just got to be able to look within and recognize the power of God that is within you. Not only the power of God, but the blood, sweat, and tears of your ancestors that runs through your veins. You've got power on the inside. The second thing that we must do is we must look out. First, you've got to look in and recognize you have power on the inside of you. Second thing is you must look out. Because if I've got power, and you got power, then we've got, just imagine what we can do. Imagine of how much we can come over. Imagine what this community would be if we could just come together. Right? Come together, let's march together, let's talk together, let's die together, we got to find some people to do life with. Matter of fact, the Bible says, forsake not yourself the assembly. Why is that so important? Why is it so important for you to find a good church home? Why is it so important for you to find some people to do life with? Because like I said, if I got power and you got power, that's a lot of power. And we can overcome anything when we come together. Right? Because as they say, united, what do they say? United we stand, divided we fall. By yourself, it's like a lone sheep. When you are a lone sheep, the devil can get at you. When you're a lone sheep, then the ways of life can attack you. But together we can overcome. Right. My time here at People's, a few years ago, I came to find that People's was a praying church. I come to find that People was a loving church. I still get birthday cards from the church. Thank you. You are an encouraging church. And that is so important for us to make it over. That's important. So if we want to know how we're going to be all right, we're going to find somebody to do life with. Because although you've got power, the Bible said it's not good for man to be alone. We got to do life together. The other thing that you have to do, still on the second point, is that you have to find someone to serve. You cannot be a Christian and not serve it. So Jesus said that I came to serve and not to be served. If Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the Messiah, came to serve somebody, you ought to be able to serve somebody. We talked about how we live in dark and turbulent times. We heard Pastor Davenport talk about the issues that are going on in our community. We heard how the Central District is turning into, is being gentrified. We heard about the homelessness that is around our community. We heard about all these different things. And the question is, what are you doing? Who are you serving on this day? Most of us have closets full of clothes that we'll never wear, and me included. But we have people on our streets who have no clothes at all. What are we doing to serve somebody? We have to look in, and we got to look out. Find somebody to do life with, and find someone to serve. The last thing that we must do, and I'll take my seat, is we must look up.
Always.
You looked in.
Always.
You looked out. Now you gotta look up. Because I got power. You got power. That's good power. But if I can get to the source, if I can get to the source of the power, that's big power right there. That's how our ancestors were able to make it over, because they had a connection with the source in Jesus. You got to be able to be connected. And the thing about being connected to the source, Jesus Christ, is that the thing about Jesus is that he is a winner. He's a winner. Matter of fact, when we see this in the text, the last verse, the last line, it says, I have overcome the world. In the original translation, it doesn't just say, I have overcome the world, but it says, I have overcome the world, I am overcoming the world, and I will continue to overcome the world. That makes me think of DJ Khalid, who said, we win, no matter what. And the thing with God is that with God, with Jesus Christ, that with Him, that we can win, no matter what. That even times it feels as if we're going to lose, even though it feels as if there is no hope. With God, we can make it. With God, we can overcome. With God, we can win. With God, we have the victory. You got sickness in your body? Give it over to Jesus. Your mind is finally changed strength. Give it over to Jesus. Your family's out of control. Give it over to Jesus. You got addiction. Give it over to Jesus. You've got trouble in your life. Give it over to Jesus. But do it then. We have the victory. We have the victory. We win, no matter what. I'll tell you a story. There was a little boy by the name of Johnny. Johnny would get on the bus to go to school day in and day out. And every day Johnny would get on the bus, there was this big kid who would pick on Johnny. He would stop Johnny and he would punch Johnny every day and tell Johnny to give him his lunch money. And one day, Johnny had got sick and tired of this bully. And he went home and he told his big brother. He went home and he said, big brother, I've got a bully who won't leave me alone. The big brother looked at him and he said, Johnny, is it that boy that lives at the end of the block? Johnny looked at his big brother and said, that's him, big brother. The big brother looked back at Johnny and said, little brother, what I want you to do is I want you to go and I want you to knock on that bully's door. I want you to tell that bully to come out in the middle of the street. Johnny's eyes got big and said, big brother, where are you going to be when I go and do this? I just told you he bullies me. The big brother looked at Johnny and said, Johnny, have I ever failed you yet? The little brother looked at Johnny and said, little brother looked at the big brother and said, big brother, you've never failed me yet. He said, then do what I told you to do. Johnny went down. And as he went down, he looked back at his brother. His brother was sitting on the porch. He went down to the other end and knocked on that bully's door. He said, bully, oh bully, come on out. I've got something to say to you. The bully came out and started laughing at Johnny. He said, ha ha, you think you're big and bad now? Johnny said, look, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of you messing with me. He said, my brother told me to tell you, don't put another hand on me again. The bully looked at him and chuckled again and raised his fist to punch Johnny again. But as he raised his fist, he raised his head. And as he raised his head, he lowered his fist. He said, Johnny, you've got it. I won't touch you again. Johnny was so excited, he come skipping home. And as he was skipping home, he found his brother in the middle of the street. He said, big brother, you won't the house. Big brother was on the porch. But on his way back to the house, Big brother was in the middle of the street.